Someone finishes a sentence, smiles politely, and looks away. In a fraction of a second, the muscles around their eyes tighten, signaling a sudden shift. 6 hours later, you are staring at the ceiling in the dark. You are replaying the inflection of their voice, decoding a slight pause, and dissecting an entirely mundane exchange. Certain people walk into a room and instantly map its psychological temperature. They register who is anxious, who is feigning confidence, and exactly how the social dynamics shift from minute to minute. The drive to understand ourselves and our surroundings goes back millennia. Aristotle argued that knowing yourself is the starting point of wisdom. Modern psychology identifies this constant environmental processing as a biological trait, sensory processing sensitivity. In this human brain schematic, incoming data points trigger heightened activation across the insula, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex. These networks capture thousands of environmental cues, transforming an ambiguous landscape into a high-resolution map of food sources, mates, and threats. Processing every available detail is a survival mechanism. It becomes a liability only when the mind loses the ability to distinguish a critical survival threat from a neutral social interaction. When the environment feels safe, this sensitivity builds deep empathy and connection. But under chronic stress, it shifts into a psychological state known as emotional hypervigilance. The nervous system braces for an impact that hasn't happened. It directs all its processing power towards scanning relationships for the slightest cues of rejection, disapproval, or abandonment. You start obsessively tracking the vocal tone of your coworkers. You over-prepare for casual conversations, suppressing your own needs just to neutralize the possibility of conflict. Organizational psychologist Dr. Tasha Eurich maps the architecture of this mental state by dividing self-awareness into two separate mechanisms. The first is external self-awareness, a precise, often intense understanding of exactly how other people perceive your actions. The second is internal self-awareness, a clear read on your own baseline values, passions, and immediate emotional reactions. When we plot these traits on a 2x2 matrix, we isolate the aware archetype in the upper right quadrant. These individuals carry the heavy psychological burden of processing high levels of both internal and external data simultaneously. They know exactly how they feel, and they know exactly how they are being judged. When a gap opens up between that internal state and external expectations, every social interaction begins to feel like a high-stakes threat. This is the threshold where open-minded, constructive self-reflection deteriorates into something much more damaging. The word rumination comes from the Latin term for a cow's stomach compartment, the rumen. It describes the physical process of regurgitating partially digested food to chew it over and over. The psychological version works the exact same way. The mind pulls up a negative thought, passively regurgitates the distress, and chews on it continuously without ever moving toward a solution. This neural pathway model shows the engine driving this loop, the default mode network, the system responsible for spontaneous thought. During a ruminative episode, it becomes pathologically hyperconnected, locking the brain into a closed loop of past-focused worry and self-criticism. This mechanical looping is entirely separate from productive introspection. Psychologists like Carl Jung practiced introspection to observe subjective experiences objectively, without getting trapped inside them. Rumination does not solve problems. It is a passive mental trap that actively sustains emotional distress, until the nervous system simply exhausts itself. Long-term psychological health requires upgrading this deep awareness into a specialized state, metacognition. Metacognition provides the functional ability to step outside your own cognitive process and quietly monitor your mind's regulatory systems at work. It is the difference between experiencing a fleeting, finite negative thought and actively dissecting that thought for 3 hours. One of the most effective ways to break the cognitive loop is an interoceptive practice called somatic tracking. Instead of engaging with the content of the worry, you drop your attention to physical signals. You notice a sudden tightness in your jaw or a spike in your heart rate, and use that physical data to safely detach from the emotional trigger. You reach a point where you can simply watch the world unfold. You register the shifting dynamics of a room without feeling the immediate compulsion to fix them or fear them. Processing the world with this level of detail provides an immense volume of information. But without the regulatory frameworks of self-compassion and metacognition, that same stream of data will eventually overwhelm the host.